If effective taxation is being discussed, there is one counter-argument that comes up more often than any other.
Record number of millionaires are expected to relocate internationally this year.
800,000 New Yorkers are prepared to leave the city.
An estimated 16,500 very rich people will leave this country this year.
Yeah, that's right. If we try to tax rich people, they are just going to leave, taking with them their money, their jobs, and their businesses.
It's plausible.
Ironically, if all the rich people leave, then we won't even get the taxes they were paying, which means that by trying to increase revenue, we might actually end up shrinking it. Capital flight or tax flight has become a massive focus around the world once again,
I got you, bro.
Particularly in the UK and now in the newly formed Socialist People's Republic of New York City, because they are at risk of losing the very individuals that shaped their economies into what they are today. Headlines have been flooded with high-profile people either leaving or threatening to leave these places and go somewhere more accommodating like Miami, Dubai, Singapore, or Switzerland. But the question is, would that actually be such a bad thing?
Can't decide whether to leave the state or the country.
Time to move
I'm
on
notating it now.
and leave the state of California permanently.
Trooper
and we're
Bird.
going to go to Florida.
Making a big move, he's heading to Miami, or at least has been there for quite some time, and it comes with an added bonus. No state income tax.
Don, we're talking about Elon Musk moving from California to Texas.
I'm leaving.
Okay, then. That was always allowed.
There is a theoretical concept in economics about the relationship between tax rates and actual tax revenue. If tax rates are very low, then naturally tax revenue will also be low because not many people are willingly going to send a check to the government. As rates increase, so does revenue, but only up to a point. Eventually, if you raise taxes any higher, it will actually result in lower overall revenue because business activity is disincentivized, or yes indeed, because people will move to somewhere else with lower taxes. Plotting out this relationship gives you what economists call the Laffer curve, named after Arthur Laffer, who popularized the idea during, well, you guessed it, the Reagan administration. Now, the idea itself is not inherently wrong, but it requires a lot of nuance, and without that, it's often used in really dumb ways to justify equally dumb fiscal policy. The first problem is mistaking exactly where on the graph most places exist. Pundits for lower taxes will say that we are on this side of the graph, which means that if only we lowered rates, it will stimulate more economic activity and actually result in higher total revenue, which can be used to fund government programs or pay down debt. It's a neat idea that you have probably heard a lot before, but it's not really backed up by most data. A 2017 study conducted on 27 OECD countries found that almost all of them were unsurprisingly on this side of the graph, where raising rates on top earners would simultaneously raise tax revenue. Out of all of the countries in the study, the biggest gap between the actual tax rate and revenue maximizing tax rate was in Mexico, Slovakia, and the United States. Now, the reason why this gap was so big was more than just simply the fact that we don't tax as much as most of our European counterparts, but we will get to that soon. For now, despite what you may have been told, the analysis overwhelmingly suggests that we are indeed on this side of the curve. Now, in the interest of fairness, the second mistake that people make by trying to read these lines is assuming that the one and only goal of tax policy is to milk the maximum possible amount of money out of people. The revenue maximizing tax rate and the optimum tax rate are not always the same thing. Lowering rates can be a good way to give average households a budgetary reprieve, or higher taxes can be used on vices to try to stem their use. But the biggest mistake of all is the assumption that most rich people choose their home by sorting low to high on a global tax database, and they are ready to jump ship the second the bill arrives. The reality is a lot more nuanced than that, to put it generously.
Yeah, no, guys, that's generally not the issue here. This is kind of what I'm talking about, like earlier here. It depends on if you're like actually wealthy, like actually rich, let's say, versus you're kind of just climbing out of poverty specifically. And let's say you're making double or triple, let's say the average person or the average household, you're still not really there yet, right? Like the people that we're looking at right here on the screen, these people, that's something different. They can live wherever they want. They don't care. Generally, then these are the people who are not going to care. But if you specifically are making 2 to 3 times, let's say the average, then you're someone who's most likely, if you're going to raise the taxes, you're probably going to leave, right? That's kind of where I'm at least in this talking point here.
The 2024 Global Wealth Report by UBS found that European countries with higher tax rates generally had a higher rate of wealth growth over the last 15 years, even after including high net worth immigration. Globally, the countries with the highest median wealth per capita all generally had very high and progressive rates of taxation on income and consumption. Closer to home, people have been threatening to leave places like New York for decades now. And yet, even after
But they
adjusting
don't.
for inflation, their
They
millionaire
don't.
populations
They
are
don't leave.
higher than they have ever been before.
Yeah.
New Yorkers are going to flee. They're going to flee New York because of Zohran Mamdani.
To my liberal
These are
friends who
scare
keep saying, well,
tactics.
tax rates don't matter, then why is it, Sean, that everybody is leaving New York?
Don't you see what's happening even in New York City? They're running out of money. Why? Because the rich people are moving.
New York's population of millionaire earners, that has nearly doubled since 2010. There are 34,000 New Yorkers making at least $1 million or more.
New York City is not even a particularly difficult place to not live in for tax purposes, because if you really wanted to, you could go and live in New Jersey and commute in every day. If you
No, don't live in New Jersey. Because like the moment you decide that it's going to be a good idea for you to specifically live in New Jersey, then your life is basically ruined. And the reason why, because I'll personally smell New Jersey on you for the rest of your life.
are particularly wealthy, you could do what a lot of hedge fund billionaires do and live in Miami and make sure not to spend more than 182 days a year in your New York holiday home.
Yep.
Extreme examples like this do happen, and they get a lot of attention from everybody when they do, because one side of the debate uses it to highlight how ultra wealthy people dodge and skirt around laws, so we should tax them more effectively, and the other side uses it to highlight how ultra wealthy people dodge and skirt around laws, so we shouldn't bother trying at all. But for all of the attention they get, they are rare.
The
and
small
overwhelmingly
businesses,
for most wealthy people, the business opportunities available in New York against the inconvenience and cost of commuting just make it worth paying the slightly higher taxes.
Those
Now,
are
that
the people
would
at
be
risk.
the end of that. If only it wasn't for the curious cases of California and the United Kingdom. So it's time to learn how money works to find out if a max exodus of rich people is actually a problem.
Okay.
This video is sponsored by Brilliant, the interactive learning platform
hold
that
on.
helps you think more clearly and solve
know you have
problems
the
with
code.
confidence. There's 20%
That's the code right here, guys. All right. Let's go.
off an annual premium subscription for unlimited daily access. Okay, so it wouldn't be fair to talk about rich people fleeing without talking about the UK. According to some estimates, the UK lost almost 10,000 high net worth individuals in the last calendar year to net outward migration. Now, some people have highlighted some
the UAE is
structural
definitely
problems
pulling
with
a
the
lot of
Henley & Partners
people
report
from the
on which
UK.
this is based, and we will get into that. But overall, their methodology is at least somewhat consistent over time, and it does draw on expertise and collaboration from a wide range of industry professionals and global bodies. The point is, it shows that the UK was once a magnet for global wealth, as people were attracted to its accommodating financial center and high-end amenities that catered almost exclusively to the ultra-wealthy. But over time, the country, and in particular the city of London, saw that these wealthy people were causing some problems. I made a video about this just 3 months ago, so I am not going to give you the whole spiel. But the cliff notes are, they drove up home prices, they turned the financial system into a laundry machine, and they didn't actually contribute that much to the economy relative to the concessions that were made to attract them. Yeah, sure, some global billionaires hired a lot of maids and service staff, but the average Brit probably wouldn't consider being a butler to Boer's war crime ski an ideal economic outcome. Now, to be fair, there were higher skilled roles like financial services that developed around these wealthy individuals as well. But a 2022 paper found that a majority of this work was done offshore anyway, providing questionable benefits to the country. As policies were introduced to curtail money laundering and actually get something out of all the wealth that was being parked in London, these wealthy individuals did indeed start leaving. The exact numbers are up for debate, but wealthy people are moving out, primarily to places like Dubai that are becoming what London was 10 years ago. A low tax money laundry with some Gucci stores stapled on. So yeah, millionaire exoduses do happen, but London is more of the exception that proves the rule. When a country was filled up to begin with by people just looking for the best deal for them and their money, then of course those are the same kind of people to move on just as quickly when a better deal becomes available. Competing in a race to the bottom to be the lowest bidder for a few thousand wealthy individuals looking to pay back as little as possible is a losing proposition.
Guys, what's funny is that like the real super rich that are actually leaving the UK, I'll go ahead and say that they're going to about maybe two more places specifically. The UAE definitely is attractive to any 100 millionaire, I'd say. If you're making beneath that, I definitely probably wouldn't suggest. Well, I guess you still could do your thing, right? But any 100 millionaire is going to be super attracted to like Dubai, UAE specifically. But the billionaires are not going there, guys. Not really. They're going to Andorra. All right. They're going to Andorra specifically. You still will see like a lot of them in the south of Spain, specifically Costa del Sol. The city would be Marbella, right? Like you see a lot of these crazy yachts popping up, pulling up out of nowhere. Everyone is driving some type of like Bugatti, Lamborghini. No one speaks English. No one speaks Spanish. They're generally either, yeah, they speak English. But bad, right? But they speak English or like Russian, mainly Russian, like where all of the Russian oligarchs basically disappear off to. That's where they go. They go to Marbella, Andorra, Saint-Tropez, these type of areas.
Even if you win, your prize is a collection of people with no local attachment who by definition don't want to contribute. But even while all of this was happening, the number of millionaires in the UK actually increased.
Okay.
This homegrown wealth is also much less likely to leave because, well, it's their home. Most people, even those with extremely high incomes, aren't going to leave their home cities, social networks, families, customs, and way of life over some tax savings. And that's assuming that they even could. On a small scale, we saw this play out over the last 5 years between California and Texas. Moving between states is easier than moving between countries. This enabled a lot of remote workers and entire businesses to shift from expensive, high-tax cities in California to more business-friendly, cheaper, and lower-tax states like Texas. But as people were forced back into offices and the AI bubble started blowing back towards a proven tech hub, places like Austin are facing serious shocks in their housing market, which had boomed on the expectation that these temperamental tech workers would keep on coming forever. The channel Upton did a great on-the-ground video on this a few months ago, so I will leave a link to that in the description. A lot of wealth in an area is tied to that area itself, and even more comes from its institutions. In that 2017 study on the Laffer curve, America had the highest revenue maximizing tax rate out of all OECD countries because we have so many domestic industries that generate enormous fortunes. A wealthy American could renounce their citizenship and move overseas for lower taxes or more accommodating regulations. But
depends on where you're
nobody
going.
does it, because having unfettered access to Silicon Valley, Wall Street, American real estate, or a financial system is worth more to most wealthy people than some tax savings.
Guys, and that's kind of exactly what I was talking about earlier, I think a couple of videos ago, I guess, right in between. You guys, when it comes down to it, like why I specifically won't live full-time in Spain, because of the taxes. Right, like it's just guys, it's wild. All right, for things that really do not truthfully benefit me in any meaningful manner. Not like that, at least. My wife pays taxes in Spain, but I pay taxes in the United States of America, and so I make sure specifically that we are never in Spain for more than like a set amount of days. This is exactly what everyone does, though. This is not, crazy or anything, but like I would rather 100% pay taxes in the United States of America than in anywhere in Europe. And I think that's just the reality for a lot of people, specifically those who run like, corporations or like large multinational companies and things like that. I just think that's just the way to kind of do things. And yeah, people are not going to sit here and immediately renounce their American citizenship. That's not the smartest thing in the world. There are like super cheap passports that you can kind of get around the world with these golden visas. But I definitely would not say or promote the idea, let's say, of giving up or renouncing your American citizenship under any circumstance at all. That's a bad deal, bro.
The study's method found that we could set top marginal tax rates as high as 76%, and most people would just have to suck it up and pay it, because leaving would have a higher opportunity cost.
Right.
The study wasn't suggesting that we should do that, but it was suggesting that the idea that raising taxes would lower revenue wasn't grounded in reality. Now, even with all this, it's important to acknowledge that as people get wealthier, setting up a life in a new country and moving wealth around the globe does become easier.
It does.
These people are also naturally
easy.
more high profile than your average run-of-the-mill high net worth individual, so they do get more attention. But in terms of general economic activity, job creation, and entrepreneurship, it's much better to have 1,000 extra millionaires than one single billionaire. And this is what we have overwhelmingly seen in major centers where the wealth exodus is getting the most attention. There is a chart that really puts this whole discussion into perspective, because it highlights just how much of a big deal wealthy people threatening to leave their home country really is. It's right here. This is the total migration rate of dollar millionaires amongst all of the countries seeing the biggest outflows. And no, this isn't me screwing up my graphs again. The report that compiled these numbers generously said that reported numbers of millionaires migrating in 2024 represented approximately 0% of millionaires at global and national levels. The UBS Global Wealth Databook estimates that there are about 60 million millionaires in the world today. A few thousand of them finding a new home is not statistically significant. This is also including wealthy people that just happen to move to countries for reasons other than saving on tax, like avoiding conflicts, political instability, or just moving to a nice place.
Rosie O'Donnell. Rosie left. That was a comment here recently. Funny enough, hold on. Didn't she go to like North Europe? Maybe not North Europe. Ireland, Scotland, maybe somewhere there, somewhere in that region there, guys. Safety of her non-binary child as she opens up about mold issues. Huh? Okay,
For
whatever.
retirement. But all right. Let's say for the sake of argument that there was some kind of change that actually did scare away a lot of wealthy people. Would that actually be a problem? Well, yes. And places like South Africa, Lebanon, Venezuela, and Russia have over several years seen this kind of capital flight. But it wasn't wealthy people leaving that destabilized these countries. It was the instability that caused the wealthy people to leave. Even if we ignore correlation and causation for a second, several studies, including some from Nobel Prize winners, have been done on the impact of these people immigrating. What they have found is that overwhelmingly, the biggest loss is the expertise of skilled workers rather than the money of a few wealthy investors.
Okay.
Losing a handful of doctors, engineers, lawyers, and institutional managers hurts a lot more than losing some cash. Money can be printed, and infrastructure can't be taken away in a suitcase, but human capital is both mobile and very hard to replace. Under normal circumstances, these people are far less likely to move away from their home since qualifications like medical degrees are not always transferable. So yes, this could be a problem if your definition of wealthy person includes high-end skilled professionals rather than just exclusively independently wealthy asset owners. Fortunately, the best way to get these people to stick around is to just make sure that institutions are well run and that people feel comfortable in their home. Anyway, go and watch this video next.
Yeah, guys, that's kind of what I was talking about, though, right? Like, I mean, if we're talking about the people who just make 2 to 3 times more than the average person, that's kind of what I was talking about. These are generally going to be like the highly skilled, certification type of people, the people who actually have like legitimate skills. They are, in my head at least, they are much more likely to start the process of moving internally. Will they leave the United States of America? Probably not. But they are more likely, in my head at least, again, to move nationally, because again, they are certified. They have all these degrees that specifically back up their career. So they're not likely. But if we're talking about the people who are like legitimately wealthy, and obviously that specifically is a very subjective thing to get into a conversation with, right? Or about, if you're talking about like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg's, bro, I don't really think that they're going to go ahead and, leave like that, because it doesn't matter. They make so much money. It doesn't matter, bro. Like it just doesn't matter. They're less likely to make that move, unless they just want to do something differently, or unless their corporation is getting wild corporate taxes, but they're just going to go either to the UAE, Ireland, or Texas. All right, the reality, at least my head, at least here, my opinion. Yeah. Oh, I know. There's a big difference between like being actually wealthy and having a good income, but I don't think the masses understand that. Truthfully, I think we can have this conversation and say, yes, but a number that immediately denotes wealthy could be massively different to depending on who you're speaking to. And I think that's kind of where whenever I see the word rich people, it's always like, what is rich? Because to a person who is making, let's say, sub 50 at least, right? Rich could be in 120,000, right? To someone making 400, in their head, they're not rich, right? In their heads, they're saying, I'm not rich, but to them, someone making $1 million is rich. So everything is all subjective, I think, at the end of the day. And I think that's the problem that I have with the word itself. I'm way too autistic for like these type of words to not make sense, to actually work in my head, at least. If we're going off the average of 100, then yeah, I would say that is right to many people based off of the median income, specifically if you remove millionaires and billionaires from the actual number that's calculated. You'll start to realize kind of instantly that many people are making a third of that, slightly above a third of that. So yeah, I can imagine how many people will perceive that as specifically as being rich. But I don't think Mamdani specifically coming out of New York is thinking that. I hope that's not the case, because a lot of people in New York are making 100. A lot of people in New York City, like specifically, if you're able to afford that $6,000-8,000 rent, yeah, you're making over 100. You have to. by default, because you're never going to qualify for it. Yep. Oh, I agree, Viper. I agree completely.
Guys, do you want to watch movies with me? I never actually thought to like promote it over here, guys. But if you guys do want to watch it, guys, we have hundreds of movies, and I mean hundreds of movies that we've reacted to. You guys can come watch them with me if you want to, along with many TV shows. Currently, we're working on the show Dexter, along with Vikings, and we have a lot of series that are already completed. But if you guys do want to watch it with me, the link is in the description. Everything's available at the second tier. But of course, if that's not your thing, guys, don't worry. Right? Listen, like and subscribe.